ADPTR Audio Sculpt, a potential game changer, but how does it actually sound? Hi, welcome to the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. In today's video, we're going to be looking at ADPTR Audio's new plugin Sculpt and listening to it on different sources. Now, if you want a bit more of an in-depth idea on what the individual modules do and the global functions, etc., I have done another video which you can check out if I've worked out how to do it in post-production here, somewhere. So anyway, no plugin doctor, no science, just how it actually sounds. Let's jump in. So here we are in Studio One. The first thing I want to demonstrate Sculpt on is drums, the drum bus. But in this case, it's actually a sampled loop. Now, the reason why I want to demonstrate it on this is because Sculpt is really, really good for this. I use a lot of sampled drums from old funk records, old soul, old jazz records in the music that I produce. And also, obviously, a lot of other people do in hip hop and house and chill out. You know, pretty much every single genre uses sampled drums. So the reason why I really like Sculpt on this is because using the combination of the upward and downward compression, you get this really nice, natural sounding room, but it really breathes movement and life into the drums. What might be a bit of a boring sample, boring drum break, you can actually really make it like pump and move and just have that real nice, raw, early 70s funk sound, like the Meters and some of the James Brown records. And then you can bring back the transients that you've squashed using the compression. So it's really, really nice for that. And using this bound control as well, you can really suck up the quieter part of the signal and really bring up the room and get that nice kind of clangy, natural reverb. But I'll also show with the bound knob turned all the way back to the left, which gives it a more natural sound. So I'm just going to play around and just you know, move the controls around and show you what I can do. First, obviously, I want to get the auto gain correct. So as you can hear there, what I did was I started off with some upward compression to create that sound that I wanted, where I sucked up the sound of the room, and it just, for me, it just moves more and there's more movement in it. And it's, I mean, I'm not saying it's a flat sample to start with. It's a nice busy jazz break. But what this did is it just, to me, gave it some more life. And I loved dragging up that natural reverb from the room, which is really, really good using the upward compression. And using this bound knob here, if you turn it to the right, you really suck up the signal. If you take it to the left, I'll just show you quickly. See, it's not quite as obvious. So if you want a much more natural sounding upward compression, this is your knob here. But for this particular one, I really wanted to bring up the sound of the room, so I turned it all the way to the right. Then obviously I added a bit of normal compression, just sort of standard drum bus. I didn't touch the attack and release here. And then I added the transients back in because I'd compressed it down and compressed it up, and because of the way the knees set, etc., it had kind of taken the edge off the snare drums. And you can hear what's happening with the transients if you press the solo button here. You see, if I take it out, the drums just sound really, really soft, which is a nice effect as well. But for this particular drum beat, I wanted the snare drums to have a bit more of a crack to them, a bit more of a snap. So in this particular situation, what the transients control module is really, really good for is bringing back the transients that you've kind of squashed using the compressors here. And then I just use the tone control a little bit and focused it a little bit just to still give it a bit of life in the mid-range and up top. So next up, I'm going to use Sculpt on a live acoustic kick drum. Let's just get the auto gain correct. Again, I'm going to bring up a bit of the sound of the room and a bit of the tail of the kick drum. But I'm going to keep it natural sounding, so I'm going to go more over to the left here with the bound. Just hear how it really naturally brings up the sound, the tail of the kick drum. So what I've done there is I've brought up the tail of the kick drum using the upward compression, then just compressed it a little bit because the kick drum was not completely even, so I just wanted to even it out a little bit. You can hear when it's in bypass that the levels are changing slightly, and it's just cracking a little bit too much for me. And then with this tone control, I just added this really nice weight to it, and then just softened the transients a little bit. So next, let's have a play around with the snare drum. So what I did there, using a very, very slight bit of upward compression, a standard sort of DBX 160 style compression with the downward compression, just to kind of, it gives it a little bit of a snap. And then I just added some weight on the bottom, the same as I did with the snare drum, and then just brought back a little bit of the transients. And now for me, it's gone from a kind of, I wouldn't say it's a weak snare drum because it's still a nice snare drum. It's a really deep snare drum, actually, one of my favorites. But what this has done is it's just added a bit of weight to it, a bit of, not bottom end, because bottom end's the wrong word, or wrong phrase rather, but it just kind of gives it some weight, some girth, maybe is a better way of describing it. So next we're going to try it out on a vocal. Now, what I found with vocals, especially because they're such an organic instrument, Sculpt really does help you sculpt it. You know, I mean, it's a perfect word for the plugin, I think. And that's how you kind of have to think of it, is taking each different module and using it to kind of mold what you want your source to sound like. You know, think of its transients, think of its levels, the volume, the overall volume, bringing up some of the quieter sounds and affecting how the tone sits, like how it's balanced tone-wise. And with vocals, you can really, I really feel like I'm molding a piece of clay when I use this plugin with vocals.
You're just not getting it, kid. I really wish you'd quit. Just take one of many hints you've been given. And my God, just leave me alone. We were good friends till you pushed it off into the deep end. Got excited over nothing. Now you can't let it go. Oh, you should let it go. You're just not getting it, kid. I really wish you'd quit. Just take one of many hints you've been given. And my God, just leave me alone. We were good friends till you pushed it off into the deep end. Got excited over nothing. Now you can't let it go. Oh, you should let it go. You're just not getting it, kid. I really wish you'd quit. Just take one of many hints you've been given. And my God, just leave me alone. We were good friends till you pushed it off into the deep end. Got excited over nothing. Now you can't let it go. Oh, you should let it go.
So what I did there was I wanted her to sound more breathy. I wanted her to sound as though she was in really close on the mic and get that nice kind of forward pop sound that that you can get with a vocal by using some compression. But quite often what happens when you use compression in that situation, you squash the vocal and you kind of squash the life out of it. But with the upward compression and the ability to bring some transients back into her, almost her throat, you can almost hear the clicking in her throat and her mouth. So it gives it this real nice clear clarity, but you still have that sort of squashed sound that that is really, really popular in pop vocals at the moment.
You're just not getting it, kid. I really wish you'd quit. Just take one of many hints.
And bear in mind as well, I haven't touched this with any EQ or any other processing at all. I've just done it all in Sculpt. And finally, we're going to have some fun using it just on a master. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the modules probably a little bit further than I obviously would in a master, because in a master it's obviously going to be very, very subtle, but I'm going to push it a little bit here to kind of get the track to sound more compressed, but still kind of working dynamically. But I want it to have that kind of squashed Daft Punk kind of style sound. So I am going to push it probably quite far, but let's have some fun. So what I've basically done is squash the hell out of it and brought up some of the lower parts of the bass sound, somehow being able to get inside the track and grab hold of that Simmons snare drum and give it a crack, but also extend the sound of the snare drums. If you listen to the snare drum, it is really, really good for doing that, this particular plugin. Grabbing hold of snare drums and just giving what's quite a flat snare drum, just giving it some life, bringing up the tail, and especially on 80s drums. Just listen to the snares. Yeah, absolutely love it. So there you have it. Now, I hope that gave you a good idea of how good Sculpt is on various different sources, not just on masters, not just on mix buses, but individual sources. Really, really good on vocals. I mean, it's a kind of go-to plugin for me on vocals now. You can do so much with it. You can completely mold the way the vocal sounds. And really, really good on snare drums. Really nice on any kind of instrument that might be quite, I guess, can be recorded a bit flat sometimes when you're tracking, but you want to breathe some life into it. Really, really good for rescuing drum kits that you've recorded and there's not really any life to them and you can't get the sound. There's no sound of the room and they just sound a bit flat. Also, really, really good for taking programmed drums and adding a bit of organic life to them. So I hope there's something there for you. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe for more mixing and mastering tutorials and reviews. This is the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. Until next time.